Hey everyone, Cell here. In this video, I'm going to be going over 20 different ways to get a Mageblood. Now, just forewarning here, this is going to be more of a for fun slash fun fact type of video. Not all of these are going to be real methods, let's say, but I will point out the ones that are going to be real methods or viable methods for obtaining a Mageblood. And I do look at things through the lens of solo self-found, so that's largely what I'll be considering here as well. And if you're curious, the background footage is me fighting the Incarnation of Dread in Ruthless Solo Self-Found, which I've been playing way too much of lately. Videos coming soon. So, starting off with the first and most obvious method here, and this is going to be the easiest way for the vast majority of people to get a Mageblood, and that's going to be trading. The whole thing with trade in general is that most people on average get an excess of things, so you're going to get a lower price or lower effective cost in terms of time or whatever metric to acquire an item in trade versus acquiring it yourself, which is what makes solo self-found more difficult. So again, I'll be considering SSF largely from here on out, but thought I'd get that one out of the way. Number 2 would be a raw or random drop. So this is what you would get from, or the method by which you would acquire Mageblood if you were like rarity farming or going for flat uniques, etc. And in my opinion, this is one of the most macro efficient ways to get a Mageblood in solo self-found at the moment, because by going for raw drops, you're going to get tons of gold, tons of drops in general, and more specifically, a lot of other mid to high tier uniques along the way. Now, of course, there's the variance factor. You could go a whole league without seeing a specific tier 2, and Mageblood as a tier 0 is, even more so the case. You could see 12 tier 0s without seeing Mageblood, and that's obviously going to feel terrible. But if you like rarity farming, it's certainly in a pretty good state in the current metagame, outside of something more specific like divination card farming. So the next one, number 3, would be ancient orbs. You can read the wiki page on ancient orbs for more information, but really, for the most part, it boils down to spend any ancient orbs you get on belts of any kind, unique belts, of course, and there's a chance you could get a Mageblood. Now, according to PoE ladder, which may be outdated or slightly incorrect at this point, I don't recall, or I don't know when the last time it was updated was. However, they estimate roughly 25,000 ancient orbs to hit a Mageblood on average, which is a lot. I've gotten a couple hundred in quite a bit of juicing in Mirage League so far. So yeah, it's those ancient orbs are probably better saved for more common uniques that you can more realistically get with them. I personally wouldn't try to chase a tier 0, although if you're going to, I guess a belt probably isn't the worst place to put your ancient orbs because there are multiple tier 0 belts. So you can cut that 25,000 rate in half by virtue of there being Mageblood and Headhunter, if you would be excited to see either of those as tier 0s. And then the somewhat related cousin of the Ancient Orb is the Tainted Mythic Orb. And you would use these on heavy belts specifically. And the gist here is you use a Tainted Mythic Orb on a corrupted normal item. Or hang on, does it need to be a normal item? I'm actually not sure, but I always use normal items because it's easy to, pick up a normal heavy belt, corrupt it, and then Tainted Mythic Orb it if you were wanting to get a unique heavy belt out of it. However, these things are very rare, like much more rare than Ancient Orbs, for example. They only come from Beyond as a reward space, and PoE Ladder, again, estimates that you would need 8,800 Tainted Mythic Orbs to hit a Mageblood on average. It's 8,800. For the record, I've used 23 this league, And again, I think these are probably more worthwhile to use on something that is more likely to actually hit a unique. And my suggestion in Solo Selfhound is to use them on jewels, because jewels are generally much easier to come by, and you can mass corrupt them for something like corrupted blood immunity, for example, or reservation efficiency. And those translate to actually useful implicits on jewels, whereas if you're tainted mythic orbing into a Mageblood, you're going to be sad about the fact that it's going to be randomly locked in to 2 to 4 flasks, and you can't divine it because it's corrupted. And yeah, you're probably just not happy to get a corrupted Mageblood. A third of the time, you're definitely not happy, although it's usable with 2 flasks, right? 3 flasks is pretty okay, and obviously 4 flasks is what you want and what you would have if it wasn't corrupted. So generally, I'm valuing corrupted Mageblood rewards to be a little less valuable in my evaluation. The next two, I suppose, could be considered random drops or in a similar space, but there is a difference in strategy here, so I separated them out. And so number 5 is going to be Valdo's puzzle boxes. There are numerous puzzle box maps that reward a Mageblood. Some of them are void maps, so you likely wouldn't want to risk a super powerful or well-geared character to run them into Solo Selfhound, just from a time consideration perspective. But there are some that are easier. Those ones are rarer, of course, but there's even one that has no mods on it. You just get a Mageblood for running a normal map. So that's pretty cool. And similar to unique farming, raw unique farming, you can get other rare uniques from puzzle boxes along the way if you were specifically farming them. So yes, there have been times, and one of them quite recently, that farming puzzle boxes was a valid way to get a Mageblood. And I'm specifically referring to Mercenaries League. Because we could target currency so heavily using the Abyss strategy in Originator maps with more currency on them, it was very possible to get 1+ puzzle boxes per map. It's only a few hundred puzzle boxes on average to hit a good map. So theoretically, you could get one with the Mageblood relatively quickly, all things considered. So if ever we have a time that we can drop a lot of currency, like I said, Mercenaries League or Affliction or something like that, then definitely consider farming some puzzle boxes if you're after not just Mageblood, but rare uniques in general. Number 6 is Reliquary Keys. Again, very similar to puzzle boxes, except I'm not sure if they're considered currency at this point. I don't quite recall. But similar mindset applies in that if there is a league where you can end up getting a lot more of them than you otherwise could, then definitely consider farming some. In my experience lately, I don't know how true this is, they have seemed a bit rarer than puzzle boxes, like significantly rare, but both puzzle boxes and reliquary keys are supposed to be more or less common based on the items that, or the pool of items that they can contain. So theoretically, if reliquary keys are rare, that means it's because their rewards are better on average. So consider that as well. And I have actually gotten a Mageblood from a reliquary before. Unfortunately, that was my third one I had gotten that league, so it wasn't quite as exciting as if I had gotten it early league or something, but I digress. Alright, next up is spending gold at Faustus. And this is not one I would recommend, but personally, I'm kind of swimming in gold with nothing else to spend it on, so if you are in that same space and you really want to dump it or use it for science, I guess is a more positive way to phrase that, then you could spend gold buying random belts at Faustus. And there is a chance that you get a unique belt, and there's a chance, therefore, to get a Mageblood or a Headhunter, or some tier 1 and 2 uniques as well. It's exceedingly rare for that to happen, though. I've heard of people collectively spending hundreds of millions of gold and still not seeing any tier 0 belts, let alone Mageblood specifically. So yeah, I think that's probably not a good method, but again, if you're willing to contribute to the science of seeing how much gold on average it takes to get a Mageblood, then that is a potential avenue. And again, these are kind of bucketed in very similar pairings here. You might notice a trend. Next one is going to be Gwennen. So similar to Faustus, except instead of getting gold, which you're going to accrue naturally kind of by playing the game, especially in the current state of the gold economy, where again, you're getting quite a lot of it. You have to go out of your way to do expedition and get Apothecary, and she did suffer several nerfs at the height of her popularity, so generally it's not seen as being all that worthwhile. However, if you do this, it's another kind of hybridized method where you probably aren't just buying belts, you're probably buying belts and jewels or something, so yeah, again, not something I'd recommend in the current state of it, but if you are going to go for it, then consider the hybridization aspect there as well. Going to try to move a little more quickly on the remaining 12 because they are all divination cards. So first up, the one everybody knows and loves, the Apothecary. It's a map exclusive drop, which can change league to league. It is a very rare card, but it was the go-to in years past for farming a Mageblood in solo self-found. The state of card farming in general is pretty bad, so I don't really recommend card farming for much anything at all in solo self-found. However, there are some exceptions, and there is one notable exception in this list, so let's keep going. The Apothecary is not that exception, but if you are really wanting to farm a mage with the traditional way, so to speak, then there are certainly worse ways you could do it. I would test out, scry to a map that you want, see how much of a common card you're getting, and go from there. Next one is the Price of Devotion. This is one of the worst ones, I would argue. Being an Uber Atziri exclusive, I don't believe regular Atziri can drop it. And the drop rate is abysmal, and the card reward is worse than average. So it's still going to be exceedingly rare as a Mageblood reward card. However, it's, again, bad in my opinion because it is corrupted. So, 2/3 of the time it's not going to have 4 flasks. Again, still usable, but if you really are going after a Mageblood, you probably want a 4 flask variant. So yeah, between all of that information, I would say never try to farm this card. And this is in a bucket that I would say if you get one, definitely try to Harvest Gamble it up to max and not be too sad when you delete them all, because you probably weren't going to finish the stack anyways. Number 3 is in a similar place here. Number 3 on divination cards, that is. And that would be the Insane Cat. The Insane Cat, again, drops from Delirium bosses, or, sorry, again, yields a corrupted version of Mageblood, and drops from Delirium bosses, which would be Kosis and Omniphobia. I don't recall if those drop in just maps, or if they can drop in the Simulacrum as well. Either way, the information is about as useful because you should not try to farm this card. Same as before, it is corrupted, like I said, so on average you're kind of getting a watered down version of Mageblood, and so it's not really worth going for, in my opinion. Next on the list is the Eye of Terror, and this card is all the rage this league in solo self-found, and for good reason. So this is a flat drop, as in there's a fixed percentage, it seems, for It That Fled to drop this card, single card, whenever you interact with it. And that can be in maps, in the usual syndicate encounters, or in safe houses. You know, killing him in the safe house versus interrogating, releasing whatever in maps. Same difference. We don't know what exactly that percentage is, but it's obviously very low. So the more you can focus on interactions with It That Fled, the better. And so it's all about maximizing your syndicate board in order to have as many of those interactions as possible. Therefore, you're pulling the lever on trying to roll for a drop from It That Fled for this card until you get 8 of them, basically. And the consensus here is that in terms of a micro efficiency, if you're just after Mageblood, this is likely the fastest way to get it currently. Captain Lance, I don't know how long the VODs on YouTube stick around for, but he had some videos of him doing a solo self-bound fresh start on a Tornado Chieftain, I believe. And farming a full stack of this is one of the first things he did. So if you're curious what it looks like to rush to get this card, you can go ahead and take a look at that. Now, this is going to put a lot of people off because it is a syndicate-driven strategy, and it's a kind of a hit-or-miss mechanic for a lot of people. For me, I don't personally like the in-and-out, do-fast maps type of maps or strategies. And this is one where you want to be kind of in and out of the map in 60 seconds. Faster than that if you can manage it. But really, even if you're going quite a bit slower than that, this is going to be faster than most methods. And if you really want a Mageblood in solo self-found in the current league, then this is the way I would recommend to get it. Alright, and then we're on the wiki page for Mageblood, looking at the divination cards to kind of go over the whole remaining 7 of them, 8 of them, and why I would not recommend farming them in order to get a Mageblood. And you'll see the 4 we already went over are specifically Mageblood, and the remaining 8 are very general. So the Wretched is a random belt, and is a map exclusive drop. Again, all of these map exclusive drops can change per league. Sometimes they come from maps actually on the Atlas, sometimes they come from unique maps. So keep an eye on that. But for the most part, these remaining ones, it's mostly going to be, yeah, you could get a Mageblood from them, or other rare belt, or piece of jewelry, whatever it might be, if you happen to get them, but they're not worth going out of your way to farm. So we have the Wretched, we have Dungeon Master for a double influence belt. Again, that is a map exclusive drop. Prejudice is a Redeemer map exclusive drop, and because it's a random item, even less likely to get a Mageblood than anything else. Having it be jewelry or belt is going to narrow the pool a little more for you. The Cash, same here. And again, kind of slightly narrow pool with jewelry, but there's a lot of unique jewelry and a lot of common unique jewelry. So you're very unlikely to get a Mageblood from that. Costa Curio, again, double influenced item. Non-specific unique item. Arrogance of the Ball is maybe the worst card of the whole set here, because apparently the wiki page says it only drops in Doriani's Machinarium, which is not a map you're going to be running a lot, in solo self-found especially, and that awards a random 2 implicit corrupted item. So it's a random item, again, low odds, and it's corrupted, which again makes your Mageblood worse on average, so definitely don't do that one. And Jack in the Box for a random item, and the Void for any random Divination card set in the whole game. And the Void is an interesting one in particular because it is a Nightmare map exclusive drop, and it can award Divination card set rewards from, again, any card. So the more Mageblood cards there are relative to everything else, then the more likely you are to get a Mageblood from it, but they tend to add other cards more quickly than Mageblood specific cards or cards that could yield one. So it isn't exactly worth banking on. But again, if you're farming a bunch of Nightmare maps for whatever reason and you end up getting a bunch of the Void, it's cool knowing that it could be literally anything and that you could get a Mageblood from it, etc. Something else to note about Divination card drops in general, and I suppose I'll throw this one at number 21, and that would be stacked decks. Stacked decks are actually quite a viable way of getting a Mageblood at this point, based on some testing I've done. I posted a video a little while ago of me opening 5,000 stacked decks, and based on the time it took me to get those 5,000, and the fact that based on some other data, recent data I've seen of like 100,000 plus cards, it seems to be that you can get an Apothecary on average every 5,000 cards. So if you have the supplies to run a bunch of a strategy that gives a lot of stacked decks, then certainly try that out, because those should also be able to yield the Eye of Terror. So again, it's kind of a situation where the more Mageblood cards there are, the more random Divination card rewards are better, and that includes from Strongboxes, although they got nerfed this league, and stacked decks. So consider that one out as well. I'll consider that a separate strategy here, but otherwise, that kind of wraps it up. So if you enjoyed this video at all, please leave a like and subscribe for more, or let me know what I could have done differently, and let me know what topics you want me to cover in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.